It's got to be like a time. It can't be 11:59, can it?
It is.
Is it really? I figured it was close of business. You won't do it by 11:59 either. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, April 18th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Bet365. Big day today, 3-gamer. We get a little bit more wiggle room off the 2-gamer from yesterday, which was fun. Shout out to 1-800-EDDIE for shipping that bad boy. I saw him at the top. I was waving from a short distance away, but too big of a distance for it to be any good. Doesn't matter. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Names are underneath us, at Josh Engleman, at ShipMyMoneyDFS. Adam, what's up?
How's it going, man? Excited for 3 games. I hate the 2-game slates. 3 games is a little bit more palatable.
I don't hate the 2 games as much as I feel like I used to hate the 2 games, because I do feel like MMA has allowed me to be better at it.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there.
I'm just playing cash.
I would rather have 3. I would rather have 3. But
yeah, just playing cash, it sucks. Like, it's just fewer decision points. I
used to consider myself a pretty bad small slate guy. And that has changed since I've revamped MMA.
Yeah.
Which is helping. There's only one place for us to start today. And that's easy because no one's talked to you about the NBA yet. What are your thoughts on the Draymond Green situation from last night?
Yeah, so Neil and I actually talked about it this morning. The only thing I'm confident in is that what I tweeted earlier, using slow motion replay to try and prove someone's intent at real speed when everything is happening like in split seconds is absurd. If it weren't Draymond, I would be pretty confident saying that it was accidental. The fact that it is Draymond makes me less confident. But either way, like, you cannot slow down a replay, find the angle that you like the most, and then be like, oh yeah, he clearly, as he's being tripped up and attempting not to fall, decides that he's just going to stomp on Sabonis. And like I said to Neil, intentional in this case to me would mean he felt Sabonis on his ankle and his immediate reaction was to stomp on Sabonis. Like, it's not like it was a premeditated thing where Draymond's like, man, I just can't wait to get tangled up with Sabonis so I can, stomp on his lungs. So yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me is I have no idea the intent. Neither does anybody else. And slowing it down just to say like, oh, well, see, when you go this slow, you see his head down and then you see his foot come down. So it was on purpose is insane.
I think it's very obvious what most people would do if someone grabs their foot as they're running away and they're going to kick back at that person.
Right. That's like the other thing is, I've seen, the people on Twitter saying that you could tell that it was all intentional too, because then he basically jumps like off of Sabonis. And it's just like, have you never had somebody grab your ankle before? You've never tripped? Like, you jump.
I assume most people you're looking at don't have people that want to touch them.
Yeah, well, but like you jump and you regain your balance, you land on both feet, you're good.
Yeah. Look, my thought process this morning was just like, did he put a little extra stank on it? Yeah, I think so. Like, it's sure. Draymond. Like, do I think he gave him a little bit more of the business? I do. Does he ever step on the middle of his chest? Domantas Sabonis doesn't wrap up his ankle? Nope.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Draymond didn't have to step over him, though. Like, after Sabonis grabbed his ankle, he could have went any other direction. He was completely off balance. Like,
yeah.
And his ankle was stuck.
I didn't want him to get the gate last night, and I said that as a person that was wildly under the field on Draymond. I thought flagrant one, Draymond, regular foul on Sabonis. These are two teams an hour apart. There's playoff energy. Didn't feel like it for me. If he gets suspended, I think that's insane.
They're not expecting him to.
Yeah, that would just be silly. Like, you gave him the gate. That's pack it in as far as I'm concerned. But no, I'm very much pro Draymond. I'm doing
his
the
athletic.
same thing.
I'm sure he didn't have to do all the extras. The fact he stayed on his feet is proof he's athletic. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people fall.
Right.
They don't get a chance to stomp in the middle of somebody's chest. Right. They aren't A+ level athletes like Draymond Green. We don't think about it like that because of like the way that he looks. He is an elite athlete.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I think that gets glossed over, that, he is top of the food chain, even if he doesn't necessarily like look like he is. But I'm very much pro stomp. I don't care at all. If he stomped him in the face, different story.
Pro stomp is in you don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily pro stomp is in like you 100% think it was intentional. Like,
I mean, I think it was intentional so much that like he was going to be stomping something.
Right.
I don't think he cared that it was Sabonis's body. If it would have been the
Draymond
floor,
being an elite athlete, like a hot take here. Hey, crazy idea. Pretty much everybody in the NBA is an elite athlete.
Not only that, he is one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And while I do agree that a lot of that has to do with his mind, that his physical ability to guard 1 through 5 through his prime probably has something to do with it. Oh, man, it's fun. I love it.
He's definitely getting suspended. It was reported like 10 minutes ago that he's probably not.
Well, don't let those facts. Shams Charania, 37 minutes ago. Looking unlikely that forward Draymond Green will be suspended, but, chat knows. So, chat knows. I love it.
Nowhere close to an elite athlete.
I mean, that's just... Can you imagine having that opinion? This is the NBA. Like, it's not bowling. You know what I mean?
It's such an insane thing. Like, I don't even know how to argue it. Like, it's insane.
I can't. There is no argument to say that you are either like you're trying to get a rise or you're simple. There's no other way around it. All right, you ready to talk some basketball?
If we must.
Dave Portnoy just tweeted, I think Tatum scores 40 tonight. I don't really rely on Portnoy for anything other than pizza reviews, but based on the amount of Jason Tatum I have right now, I hope this man is right. The Atlanta Hawks are 10.5-point dogs in Boston, 230 total. For Atlanta, we do have at least a little piece of news hanging out there. Jalen Johnson is questionable. Take that however you would like. Optimal prime. Josh also said Jokic was the greatest offensive big man of all time. Good luck disproving that one. My God. Let's talk.
By the
Atlanta.
way, where is this Jalen Johnson questionable thing coming from?
I don't know. Basketball Monster? Is it not on the injury report?
There is no. Atlanta didn't put anybody on the injury report.
Well, then don't worry about Jalen Johnson. I assume he's going to play his 11 minutes.
Yeah, I only noticed it because I did the BetPro video earlier, and he's like highlighted in whatever color we use for people that are questionable. So I pulled up the injury report, and there's no Atlanta injury report.
That's interesting. I wonder if there's another source that's hanging that Q tag somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's just nothing from Atlanta.
Yeah, that feels incorrect.
Right.
Like, it makes me feel like he is questionable, and it's just not in this document.
Yeah.
Like it got cut out because they're Atlanta, and like it cut out the top of the page or something stupid.
Right. That's why I was asking where you're getting it from, because like it's really weird not to see anything.
Yeah. It's more weird to me now that Monster has it and we have it.
Right.
Because now that's two different places that are showing something that might not exist. Anyway, let's talk Atlanta.
The DraftKings blurb says nothing about it.
Well, the DraftKings, it'd be questionable from 3 days ago or something stupid.
Well, right. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like they list guys
Yeah.
as questionable when they're not questionable.
Let's talk Atlanta. Let's start at the top. 9K, Trae Young, who could play anywhere from a certain amount of minutes to more than that. 8% owned for Trae, 5% owned for DeJounte Murray. We'll ignore Jalen Johnson for this particular moment. We'll talk about him in a different light, but it's kind of crazy to see the like two top guys for Atlanta be sub 10% and all of their additional ownership coming in to everybody else. How do you want to handle Trae Young and DeJounte Murray?
It's tough to want to get a lot of them. Clearly a tough matchup against Boston. Trae Young played like 35 minutes last game. You and I were talking about it this afternoon. On the one hand, it's difficult not to think that Young's playing upper 30s in minutes, but at the same time, we just saw him play 35. We've seen Quinn Snyder not really be aggressive with his minutes, even going back to must-win games or at least important games in the regular season. So, expecting around 36 minutes, knowing there's a chance for him to play more, I think makes sense. The salary is fine. The lack of ownership is appealing for somebody as good as he is. Same goes for DeJounte Murray. But in terms of projection and just how easy it is to get there, I think they're both actually pretty difficult to get to.
So I agree sort of with what you're saying. Final 3 games of the regular season, 41.5, 38.5, 42.5 for Trae Young. He played 36.5 in the first play-in game, but they won that pretty handily. Like, I got him in for 38, and I still can't get to him at 9K. That's sort of the problem here for me. Not that he doesn't look good. It's just that everything else around him, to me, looks better, whether that's Donovan Mitchell ahead of him, Devin Booker below him. You can even say like Jaylen Brown below him. So would I mind getting to Trae? No. Do I have him in a playoff contest today? Yes. However, I can't get to him today. And I don't even mind that much because they are 10.5-point dogs and it's tough. Do you see Murray differently? Because to me at 8K, he feels like the guy that's like a little bit easier to get to and like the contrarian option that you can get to.
Yeah, I mean, I like Young as the contrarian option too, if you can get there. You always like Murray a little bit more than me, but at 8K, like I get it. He's going to play big minutes. He's a good point per minute guy, but again, it's just purely a low owned contrarian play. It's not like I don't think the field is wrong for not having a lot of Young or Murray. I do think on a 3-game slate, it's nice being able to get them, at these prices and low ownership.
So then I'm just going to grab everybody now for Atlanta. Well, actually, let's get Capella and Okongwu out of the way. 15% ownership to Capella at 5,800. Call it 15% ownership to Okongwu at 4,200. Do you see anything interesting with the two of those guys? And I feel like the easiest way to talk about Okongwu will to be eventually to talk about him the same way we talk about Isaiah Hartenstein and Mason Plumlee. Probably not anybody from Phoenix, but like in the group of backup centers that are all going to do the same shit.
Right. I think they're both pretty much correctly priced. You're expecting it to be some sort of like a 27, 28-minute split in favor of Capella with the rest of the minutes going to Okongwu. They're both cheap enough where there is upside. Capella is a capable point per minute guy. He can certainly go out there and give you big games in 27 or 28 minutes. Similarly, in 20 minutes or so, Okongwu very capable of being good at 4,200. The ownership looks like it's about where it should be. We have Capella going slightly under-owned on DraftKings, 20% chance of being optimal, 15% ownership. We have Okongwu going slightly over-owned, 17% ownership, 12% chance of being optimal. But none of those numbers are crazy. They're more or less where they should be in terms of ownership.
Hunter's 23% owned. John Collins, who got 29 minutes in game 1, is 26% owned. Bogdanovich at 14, Sadiq Bey at 15. Do you like any of these individual bench guys for Atlanta? Which direction are you leaning here?
Not particularly. It's just like I don't feel very confident in any of their minutes. We saw Bogdanovich get the closing minutes in the last game playing 28. You could certainly see games where it's Sadiq Bey. He closed the first half over DeAndre Hunter. Bogdanovich wasn't out there either. So like they're all risky in that, Bey played 24 minutes. He played a total of 9.5 minutes, basically 10 minutes in the second half. Bogdanovich is the one that, got the minutes that you would feel good about. But in the first half, he played like 9 minutes. So there's just going to be a lot of volatility in this playing time. So I do think it's reflected in the ownership where you do only have 14% coming into Bogdanovich at 4,800. You do only have 15% coming into Sadiq Bey at 4,500. If either of those guys do play 28 to 30 minutes, there is at least a path to them doing well. But the playing time's pretty volatile between those two, and then to some extent, Hunter and Collins as well.
Yeah, I find them tricky to want to get to. you kind of just like are picking the guy that you think is going to be the one that gets like the outlier minutes. In the game on Tuesday in the play-in, you saw John Collins not play a ton. Hunter didn't play a ton. Those were the game. That was the game where you got a ton of Sadiq Bey. Then Sadiq Bey doesn't play as much on Saturday. You get a little bit of extended run out of John Collins. Right now, I'm getting to Hunter and Collins, and I think I'm okay with that. Those are the two that I would probably want the most. If I'm going to get to anybody, I'd probably prefer the starters, but I'm pretty light on this Atlanta team across the board. It's a terrible spot, too. So, like, I don't think that that's all that crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter and Collins are the two pulling the most ownership, and it's just because they are cheap. They're likely giving you 30 minutes. Yeah, there's nothing that stands out as like particularly good from Atlanta. There's a lot of like good players not getting a lot of ownership, which is nice in tournaments, but it's also completely understandable why they're not getting a lot of ownership.
Yeah. Do you anticipate getting to Jalen Johnson today, since he is very clearly not on an injury report?
Probably not. Like, played 13 minutes last game. He's 3,400. He can do well, I guess. You know, he's getting 6% ownership, 4% chance of being optimal. But pricing is cheap enough today. I don't think you really need to go there. I certainly prefer kind of just living in the mid-range because there's not a lot you need to pay up for.
I just don't know if it's going to be today or if it's going to be game 3 where he is removed from the rotation and they consolidate to 8. Because I think that that's in the cards, unless Quinn Snyder's looking at this like, I'm not playing the adjustments game. We're going to get the shit kicked out of us. But I would not be surprised to see Jalen Johnson be fully removed and those 11 minutes go to Bey, Bogdanovich, Hunter, whatever, and everybody plays a little bit more. But if that happens today, kudos to anybody that got Atlanta bench dudes. I got nothing else for Atlanta. We have a lot more to talk about for Boston.
Agreed.
Yeah, this one's a fun one. So we've got massive ownership coming into Jason Tatum at 40%. Because when I say massive, everything's flat today. Like there's sort of enough value. The prices at the top are down a little bit. $9,800 Jason Tatum's 40% owned. $8,500 Jaylen Brown, 35% owned. $5,500 Al Horford, 35% owned. Derek White at $5,300, 45% owned. Let's start with Tatum at the top. Is he the best play on the slate today?
Seems a little aggressive, but at the same time, I guess so. Like, it feels weird to say that because typically Jason Tatum is kind of tough to get to because there's always guys priced around him that look a little bit better, but that's really not the case today. He's the highest projected guy on the slate by nearly 6 full points ahead of Mitchell and Durant. He's 9,800, so you're getting him at a sub 10K discount for what feels like the first time in forever. Normally during the regular season, this is somebody that was 10-5, 10-6. So yeah, I mean, I guess he's got to be up there. We have him with a 32% chance of being optimal. So we actually have him with the third highest optimal percentage on the team, but that's also one of the highest marks on the slate. And I think it would be higher if you had better value.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like 9,800. I really like that price tag. I am getting over the field on Tatum right now. I love the spot for him against Atlanta. The only thing that really scares me about Jason Tatum is Jaylen Brown. 8,500. You get shooting guard, small forward, so great flexibility. Ownership is there, slightly lighter than Tatum. How do you see Brown in relationship to Tatum?
I mean, I kind of like the price tag more, just and the positional eligibility, being shooting guard, small forward. Like I was saying before, it's just there's not a lot of value that I really want to get to. And I think that $1,300 probably does end up going a long way. So if you have a value play that you like, then clearly Tatum projects a lot better. But, I think you're getting similar upside for a lot less money. Obviously Jaylen Brown is less likely to have the big game than Tatum is, but you do see plenty of games where Brown is the one that takes over. So I think he's just a little bit easier to get to.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming there. I think the raw points are just getting me to Tatum, but like if it flip-flopped and I was getting Brown, I'd be just as happy. I like that price tag and I like that positionality. Who's the best? If it's not Tatum, who's the best play on Boston?
I think it's Brown.
Okay. I think that's fair. No problems there. What do you want to do with Derek White, who played 38.5 minutes on Saturday, 45% owned, but at 5,300 still seems fine to me.
Yeah, he just looks really good at that price tag because he doesn't have to play 38 minutes to pay that off. It's not
Yeah.
like the price tag really jumped because he played 38 and a half minutes. And if he does play 38 and a half minutes, he's very, very likely to be one of the best values on the slate. Even if he plays like 33, 34, you're likely going to want him at 5,300. So he does look really good. Also, we didn't specifically say it on the Atlanta side, but somebody in chat asked if we think they go small again today. For most of last game, they didn't. They went small at the very end for the last.
It was like the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was the last 2 minutes they went small. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't think it makes a huge difference here.
I projected 1 minute. Like, if they need an offensive bucket, Collins is going to the 5, and like they're just spreading the floor out. But I don't think that's a long-term plan.
Yeah, and they're more likely than not to be playing from behind.
Yeah, they have not shown the want to go to John Collins at the 5 all that much, and I don't think they're about to start right now. It's also like the Celtics aren't the team that you can spread out in this scenario. I mean, like maybe you try it because nothing else is working, but it's not like that's the path to victory here against Boston either. Yeah, I like White quite a bit here. I like this series for White. I think we talked about it before game 1, but this isn't a Marcus Smart series. You don't need his strength defensively against Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. It just fits the way that Derek White plays a little bit more. So let's talk about the other guy that's getting a ton of ownership. Al Horford, 33% owned, 5,500 power forward center, played 38 minutes on Saturday. Feels like too many minutes for Al Horford in game 1 against the Hawks.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also the postseason. And I think if you, like when you think about Boston, the guy that you probably expect to have the biggest gap between his typical regular season playing time and his postseason playing time is probably Horford. Robert Williams would be second, but obviously that's going to be somewhat negatively correlated with Horford. Yeah. You would expect it to be, one of those guys playing more minutes than usual. We got Horford last game. He has power forward eligibility as well, so that looks good at 5,500. He actually has the highest optimal percentage on the team at 36%, just edging out Jaylen Brown and slightly ahead of Tatum and White. And I think that is because of the forward eligibility in addition to being really cheap. So you're never that comfortable going to Al Horford, but it is a solid matchup. He is still cheap and he is likely to play big minutes.
I just they were beating the living shit out of Atlanta at one point in the third quarter. And Horford played 21 of the 24 minutes to close that bad boy out. Like, he played the entire fourth quarter. That just seems like, I know they started to cut it. They went on that 21-9 run, but like
they did go on a +7 run basically as soon as Horford left the third.
I know you don't want to play Grant Williams or whatever in this series, but holy shit, just give him 6 minutes. Give the old man a blow. It's game 1 against the Hawks. Either way, 5,500 for Horford. I gave him 34 minutes. Like, there's no way I'm going to 38 again, but I am intrigued there. How do you want to handle Smart and Brogdon? These are two guys that I am not getting to.
Yeah, I mean, Brogdon kind of makes some sense if, you want to get away from Derek White. Not that both of them can't have a good game together, but if you get a game where Derek White plays considerably fewer minutes, there's a very good chance you're getting more than the 21 and a half minutes that Brogdon played last game. And you're getting Brogdon at about 1/3 the ownership. So, along those lines, I think that's how you would make an argument for Brogdon. But you also clearly can't be as confident in him as you are in guys like Derek White, just based on the rotation we saw last game. Similarly for Smart at 5,900, it's just kind of tough because he's more expensive than Horford. He's more expensive than White. He's more expensive than Brogdon, who we know is a better point per minute guy. Smart, the one likely to play more minutes, but Brogdon kind of gives you that elevated ceiling. So I think I'm a little bit more comfortable getting to Smart than Brogdon just because I feel better about the playing time. But the price tag being a little bit more expensive than those other guys makes it tough as well.
I shot you this in a DM earlier, but I'm going to say it for the crowd here. Malcolm Brogdon's played 386 minutes, where the other 4 guys on the floor for Boston were the guys that played in game 1. So, Horford's got 1,000 minutes in the sample. Brogdon's got a bit less. 386 minutes alongside the rest of the playoff rotation. 16.8% usage in that time. When he's out there with everybody else, he's just not playing the way that you think Malcolm Brogdon is playing. Part of the reason that he had such success in second units when he was playing stretched out minutes with less stars, but very intriguing to me if he's going to be seeing potentially reduced run. Final guy we got to talk about here for Boston, because I don't think you and I are going to be talking about Sam Hauser here. What do you want to do with $4,900 Time Lord? Because he's 11% owned and I'm fascinated.
Yeah, the Time Lord piece is really interesting because we know he's a great or very, very good point per minute guy. And it's sort of like Brogdon relative to Derek White. If Al Horford plays considerably fewer minutes here, you're getting more for Williams. And obviously they're going to play alongside each other at least a little bit as well. You got like 12 minutes combined basically last game, but he's such a good point per minute guy that at 22 minutes, he can certainly get there. And if Horford were for any reason to play 34 or 35, then you're probably getting 24, 25 for Williams. I do think he's really interesting in tournaments.
I love him in tournaments. That ownership he's the perfect GPP play for me today. One, like maybe they just want to play Horford 33 minutes and all of a sudden Robert Williams is up to 25 or 26. And it's just like, oh shit, at 4,900. I love it. As long as he's healthy, and he seems like he's healthy. So give me some time, Lord. I got nothing else here for Boston. So Jaylen Brown is your preferred option coming out of here, right?
Yeah, the price tag just I think ends up being a little bit more useful.
I don't think you're crazy at all. I have nothing else to add there. Let's talk schedule for the rest of the day. 1,200 people in here, 120 likes. It's an okay ratio. It's not good enough. Hit the thumbs up. I know Bet365 would prefer it. That's for sure. That's very easy. That's an easy way to help us out. Cost you nothing. NBA Live Before Lock coming up at 6 o'clock, taking you all the way up until 7. It's that simple. You've got Atlanta, Boston at 7. You got the Knicks and Cavs at 7:30. And then we wait for the late game Clippers and Suns at 10 o'clock. We're not done there. 50% off of something is a pretty good deal. At least that's the way that I look at it. So you can get 50% off of any sport, platinum, weekly, or monthly, by clicking the link in the description or using the promo code SCORE. That gives you access to everything that we have except for Fantasy Cruncher, which you could add on, by the way. That's going to be projections, ownership, our lineup generator, the lineup builder, boom bust tools, leverage scores, top stacks, top pitchers, top batters, other sports that have top fighters, top golfers. We have so many advanced analytics on the back end. This is an incredible deal for you. So if you haven't signed up with us yet, come check it out. 50% off. We've been watching everybody that's in the inner circle of Stokastic picking up dubs with these tools. Steve Buzzard, day after day after day, winning MLB, then topping it off with a qualifier seat. Eddie Lai, last night, 100K on DraftKings, NBA. These are the guys that are building those tools and using those tools. Come get what they've got. Come join us, folks. All righty. People don't seem to believe that you're not watching any basketball.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either. I have no idea. I mean, I'm loving it. You can learn rotations without watching a game. That's what I generally do in the regular season. And
yep.
I mean, I don't think that there's anybody on the planet that I would comfortably say knows more about rotations by the time that NBA season ends. I think we're all in the same sort of boat when we get to the end of it, but there are chunks of time during the regular season, and I think you would agree here, where you could by hand write down 12 guys on each team's roster, generally in the order that they play.
Oh yeah.
Like off the top of your head.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You're just like, you're looking at it daily. And I'm not watching every team every day. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, most of the time during the regular season, I'm watching teams like, I don't know, the Hornets, where I'm just like rostering, because I'm just rostering whoever they're playing. I'm not watching like actual good teams.
I'm sweating some bullshit Pistons game, and it's just like, all right, I need Alec Burks off the bench today, and all of a sudden I just want to, drink broken glass.
Oh shit! Jeffrey Springs, Tommy John surgery.
Makes sense. I'm not surprised given the way that he left that start.
Yeah, I'm surprised you even know who he is, honestly.
Oh man. All right. Yeah, that's fair. New York Knicks. This one's weird. 5.5 point dogs in Cleveland, 214 total. I'm going to tell you right now, I have one share of Jalen Brunson and not a single share of another Knick in any other lineup right now. So let's talk this through. We got the new Josh Hart was doubtful to start today, which was just like, all right, cool. Maybe the Knicks will be slightly more interesting to get to. Well, Josh Hart is expected to play now. The highest owned guy on the Knicks is Isaiah Hartenstein at 4K. Brunson at 13% is second. Everybody else is in single digits. Look, can the Knicks just go out and win this game and have like two of these guys look like they're decent by the end of it? Absolutely. This is very clearly the worst team on today's slate, and it's by a mile.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jalen Brunson seems really interesting to me at 7,900.
I don't disagree with you. It's weird, right?
Yeah. And honestly, so does Randall at 8,600. But like Brunson's going to play huge minutes. He played 29 and a half minutes last game because he picked up 3 fouls in the first half. He played a total of about 9 minutes in the first half and then still got to 30 minutes. Like, this is somebody that is going to play 37, 38 minutes if this game's competitive at 7,900 and 13% owned. So it's sort of the DeJounte Murray, Trae Young piece, except slightly less expensive than Murray and a lot less expensive than Young, where it's not a good matchup, but it is a very good player who's clearly going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So I am interested in him. He is projected to go a little bit under owned on DraftKings. Julius Randle at 9% is, I guess, comparable to Murray and Young too, where 9% owned Julius Randle on a 3-game NBA slate has to be somewhat interesting, but it is also a really, really tough matchup. And 8,600 is still relatively expensive when you compare it to other guys on the slate. I think that's the biggest thing is, at first it's like, wow, Julius Randle's 8,600, but Jaylen Brown's 8,500. Jason Tatum is at a cheaper than usual price point. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are sandwiched around Randle. There's all the guys on Cleveland where, Donovan Mitchell is only $600 more. Garland is a lot less expensive. Mobley's a lot less expensive. So when you compare it to other guys on the slate, it does become apparent why he's not getting more ownership. I do expect him to play more minutes today. He played 33 and a half last game, only played 4 minutes and 16 seconds to open the third quarter, picked up, I believe it was his third foul, maybe his fourth, but went back to the bench. Played 34 minutes in that first game back from injury. I'm expecting 37, 38 from Randle here, which does make him somewhat interesting at low ownership.
Yeah. And I would not be surprised at all if this is a competitive game to see Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson both play 40 minutes today.
Yeah, agreed.
And this is the game that's supposed to be the most competitive game. Let's just get Hartenstein out of the way here. We'll have the same conversation as for like we did for the Hawks, but like Hartenstein's just a Kongwu, but on a different team, right?
And not as good from a fantasy standpoint.
But, the comparable ownership, backup center, the path that this needs to take. Do you care about either one of them more than the other, like other than just liking Okongwu more?
Yeah, I mean, I think I prefer Okongwu just because I think he's the better fantasy player. But but like they're getting similar ownership. They're very, very similar plays where they at least have like actual spots in the rotation. We're not talking about Daron Sharp, who, by the way, just straight DNP'd yesterday. We're not talking about Alex Len or Paul Reed. Nobody here is backing up Joel Embiid. Like, they have actual roles, and so that's good. Like, Hartenstein at times just plays Mitchell Robinson right to the bench. You've seen plenty of times where Hartenstein ends up being in the closing lineup. That's not going to happen very often, but it can, whereas you talk about like the teams that we had yesterday and it's never happening. Paul Reed's never closing over Embiid. Sharp is never closing over Claxton. Len's never closing over Sabonis. 0% chance of that ever happening in a competitive game. You can get a competitive game here where Hartenstein just stays on the floor. You can get a competitive game where Okongwu stays on the floor. So it does make them more appealing than their counterparts in this situation yesterday, but compared to each other, they're very, very similar.
We're on the same page there. Go wherever you want here for the rest of the Knicks. Is there anything you see where you're like, that's a guy that I should get to? Because I think they all look actively bad.
And somebody in chat said Hartenstein did close. Yeah, he did technically close. He played the final 2 minutes and 12 seconds of the game after not stepping on the floor the rest of the fourth quarter. The rest of the Knicks, no, I think they do look pretty bad. Like, if you want to take shots on Robinson at 5,400, hope he plays 30 minutes and blocks like 8 shots, sure. But obviously, that's not particularly likely to happen. 5% chance of being optimal, 6% ownership. Hart at 6K is a pretty tough sell. Quickly at 5,700, with Brunson back, is a pretty difficult sell. Played 24 minutes last game. Played a ton in the first half when you had Brunson in foul trouble. Played 4 minutes in the second half. Only played when Brunson was not on the floor. That's not an ideal rotation that you want to see.
No.
Clearly, I expect him to play minutes alongside Brunson, but not very easy for him to get a ton of minutes if Brunson's going to go out there and play the 37, 38 we're expecting.
I mean, the Knicks rotations are like really hard to look at in Popcorn Machine. They're all over the map. You see, Quickly comes in and at the end of the first or in the middle of the first quarter, doesn't leave the floor again until halftime, and then basically doesn't play in the second half. I mean, I don't know what to do with that kind of information sometimes. Obi Toppin's just like showing up from time to time. Josh Hart is just playing massive rotations once he checks in, including the full second quarter and fourth quarter. Like, I don't know how to balance
So,
this.
I mean, the Toppin minutes are easy because he just played all of the non-Randle minutes. So if you assume that Randall plays a few more minutes today than he did last game, you're expecting a few less minutes for Toppin. Hart, if you wanted to make a case for Emmanuel Quickley, I think you actually look at Josh Hart's minutes and say, like, well, what if Quickley gets that role today? Because he could.
What if he just does that in the second half instead of just the first half?
Yeah. So like that would be the case to make for Quickley is what if we get 24 minutes from Josh Hart today? That probably would mean like 30 from Quickley, but it's still clearly a pretty risky play.
That is definitely not the way to tag the news god in chat. That's for sure.
I didn't say that.
Not at all, man. Not at all. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you probably want to get the L first. Just me. Just me. I mean, that's... I feel like chat is a Quentin Tarantino movie right now. Yeah, I got nothing else to add here for the Knicks. Like, I'm shocked at how bad they look. They didn't even look good when Hart was out, which was a real struggle. But now it's much worse. Much worse. Very different on the Cleveland side, though. I got a lot to talk about for this one. So for the Cavs, we'll start with the main four guys. Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Allen. They played 43, 43, 38, and 43 minutes in the first game. They're all getting, call it 25 to 35% ownership, depending on the guy that we're looking at right now. I find Mitchell a little hard to get to at 9,200 just because of what else is out there. I'm getting to Tatum. You know, that was the sort of the main point here. When you look at the Cavs' main four guys, who is the best option to you?
Allen.
Okay.
I think.
I don't think that that's crazy. By the way, Jared Allen's over-under on Prize Picks today, fantasy points, is 32.5, I believe, which just doesn't pass the smell test if you think about it. Like, I saw it and Snap took it. Like, he's a fantasy point per minute guy, and there's no real wiggle room there. So if you think he's getting 32.5, how many minutes do you expect Jared Allen to be playing? Just crazy projection. Anyway, talk to me about Jared Allen, 6,500.
Just really cheap, and obviously played huge minutes last game. I mean, I like all of the Cavs main guys just based on how many minutes they played, but the $6,500 price tag just really stands out. You don't have a great center position today either. You know, we kind of were alluding to that when we were talking about Hartenstein and Okongwu, but you know, this isn't the slate where you have Sabonis and Jokic and Embiid. So it makes, you know, the opportunity cost is lower. It just makes it a little bit easier to get to Jared Allen. 33% chance of being optimal, 37% ownership. Very, very happy to get there. Happy to get to Mobley, Garland, Mitchell as well. I think the price tags are a little bit less favorable. As a result, you do have lower optimal percentages, but you know, still clearly a massive ceiling for Donovan Mitchell. Darius Garland's going to play a bunch of minutes. 7,400 is very reasonable for him. He's probably one reason why Jalen Brunson on the other side is only pulling 13% ownership. Is you can get 40 minutes from Garland, you know, for $500 less. So yeah, that's going to look pretty good. Evan Mobley's price tag's down to 7,100. Disappointed for me, whatever day the last game was. Needed him to get 2 more points in the final like quarter to get his double-double and didn't manage to do it. But, you know, still going to play big minutes, and at 7,100 still looks pretty good.
I'm getting to a bunch of Garland. I think that price tag is just the problem. But I do want to ask you this. Like, I've pulled all the new rate. Like, I've pulled my rates for when these guys are just on the floor with their playoff rotation guys. You read, like, over the last 30 days, Garland's at 0.84 fantasy points per minute. Do you think that's like just a bad shooting thing? Is it a Donovan Mitchell exerting himself thing? Is Garland dinged up? Because he's been pretty bad lately. And it's the kind of thing that's making me wonder if I'm getting to too much of someone that is like, maybe I have projected like a guy that he isn't for right now. Are you reading into anything for Garland because of his recent form?
Not too much. I mean, you still have a much longer track record of Garland being very good. I do think you can certainly make the case that you know, it's the postseason and Donovan Mitchell is just going to be the one. Whereas during the regular season, you get a lot of back and forth there. But outside of that, I'm not overly concerned about it.
When you look at Mitchell, how do you grade him out in relationship to everybody else that's around him at the top?
I still think it's easier to get to Brown at the cheaper price tag. He still projects like 6 points behind Tatum. So for $600, you're going to be trying to get to Tatum, I think. Does make him interesting in tournaments, but he is still pulling 25% ownership. But on a 3-game slate, that's not really a lot. It's still, Tatum was at 40%. We have Mitchell at 25. So I think he's an interesting pivot to Tatum, but I'd be expecting to get to Tatum first if I'm playing one of those two guys in cash or even just in like smaller field tournaments.
What about Mitchell in relationship to Trae Young?
I prefer Mitchell.
Okay. Interesting in GPPs though, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just look at Donovan Mitchell and it's just like, okay, I feel like I can move this around. Like, does he look good at 9,200? Yeah, sure. But everybody else of value around him is sort of like his stature of player, whether that's Trae, Devin Booker, who's causing me major problems, Brown. Like, all of these guys here are just like high-end NBA guys. To see Trae Young get 8 when everybody else is getting 20, I know the matchup sucks, but I'm intrigued by it at the least. How do you want to handle the value here for Cleveland? LeVert got very small minutes. He's pulling 24% ownership. I am not getting there right now. That is a bigger fade for me. I'm a little nervous about him, and I'm giving him way more than the 18 minutes that he got. I'm interested more in like Okoro or Chetty at like the sub 4K punt type options. But what do you see?
Yeah, so LeVert is interesting to me in the sense that he's scary either way. Like at 4,300, he played 18 minutes last game, but in the first half he played 13 minutes. Yeah. If you get like 26 minutes from Caris LeVert at 4,300, you're probably not going to be in great shape if you don't play him. Similarly, if he plays the same rotation and you do play a lot of him, you are pretty much screwed. But you can at least look to the rotations in that game where Chetty played a ton in the second half. Chetty played most of the fourth quarter. LeVert didn't step on the floor in the fourth quarter. If LeVert plays well, I think he controls his own minutes. That's a very big if for Caris LeVert. But if he plays well, I think the minutes will be there. At 4,300, I certainly think you can take the risk. We do have him going a little bit under-owned here, 24% ownership, 31% chance of being optimal. Even, if you want to discount the optimal percentage a little bit, just because that obviously is based on projection. And if we are projecting LeVert high, like there's volatility in his minutes here. So even if you want to discount that optimal percentage a little bit, I think it's safe to say he's coming a little bit under-owned. I'm with you in being interested in Okoro though. Only played 22, 23 minutes last game, and he's not a very good point per minute guy. That goes without saying, but he's really cheap on a slate. We don't have a lot of value. He's not getting much ownership, and the Knicks would really like Isaac Okoro to continue shooting. Like I tweeted something about it the other day. I had the game on a TV, and I think I saw a total of like 3 possessions, and all 3 of them it was 2 corner threes from Isaac Okoro, and then Isaac Okoro getting to the rim. And it's just one of those things that you see in the postseason where you're getting series and teams are game planning. Like the Knicks are going to try and create a situation where they pack the paint. They let Isaac Okoro take open shots. And clearly he's not very likely to knock them down because he's not very good at scoring. And that's why the Knicks are going to let him do it. But you're going to get a higher ceiling from Isaac Okoro in a game like this than you normally do. In the regular season, teams aren't game planning and scheming to the same extent. And so it's more so in the regular season, like if Darius Garland decides to give Okoro the ball or Donovan Mitchell decides to give Okoro the ball, as opposed to the defense dictating like, no, you are going to pass him the ball here because he's wide open and you can't get to the rim. So I do, at the lack of ownership there, I do find him pretty interesting.
I'm a little more interested in him and Chetty at 6% than I should be. It's not a fun thing to get to, that's for sure. But at the same time, like if you're trying to find value somewhere, there's only so many places you can go. And if all the backup centers are already getting 15% ownership in situations like that, then I'm willing to at least take a shot. I will say this much for Okoro, because he's obviously not like, he's been apprehensive to shoot in the past. He started shooting, or at least as the season went on, his 3-point attempts, like per 100 possessions, dramatically higher than they were closing out the end of last year and starting this year. So he started to look for a shot a little bit more late, which makes me like him more here. That's for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
All righty. Anything else we should touch on for Cleveland?
And like with Okoro, it's just like if he were, 20, 25% owned, I would absolutely hate him here. But at 7-8%, I think he's a good play.
All righty. Let's talk a little bit about...
Do you have any interest in Chetty on the chance that they replicate that second half rotation?
Yeah, you must have missed me saying it. Like I've got 14% Chetty right now. I gave him a decent chunk of minutes. They didn't seem to be all that fond of Dean Wade. Somebody's got to play.
Yeah, I mean, Rubio didn't play either in the second half.
Yeah. 3,500 power forward eligible. If he's 6%, I have 14 right now. Very happy to get to Chetty as a pay down option.
Yeah, I think he's kind of similar to Okoro in that if he were popular, I would have no interest. But there is enough of a question mark about what the rotation is going to look like here. And, based on the second half, like you had Chetty in the closing lineup over Okoro. He played in the second half. He played every minute that Okoro was not on the floor, plus a couple alongside him. So if you do get a rotation like that, like there's some path to low to mid 20s for Chetty. I don't think that's the most likely outcome, but it at least exists.
And they got back in the game. They were +6 with Chetty on the floor to close out that fourth quarter stretch. So it's not like he just got beat and, worked his way into these minutes somewhere else. Bet365 is the sponsor, and this is the deal for you. If you live in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, or Virginia, bet $1, get 200 in bonus bets. There are not deals better than that. Like $1 for 200 with zero risk. You should take advantage of this every opportunity that you have. And as more states get added on, just go ahead and grab it. Link in chat or in the description. You got to make a deposit and your bonus bet winnings get added to your bonus bet balance. But you have that and you're going to be able to put that down on whatever you would like. Guys, please take advantage. Whatever you can do to make that picture of Eric go away faster, that's what you should do. And signing up at Bet365 is going to do it. Now, the legal age for gambling in most states is 21 or over. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. But before you do any of that, sign up at Bet365. Final game, late night hammer. LA Clippers, 8-point dogs in Phoenix, 227 total. Interesting to see the line on this bad boy. Let you know what happened in game one. No Paul George, obviously. Pretty balanced coming into the Clippers. Call it 15 to Kawhi, 15 to Russ, 20 to Gordon, 30 to Zubats. We could have that conversation. 15 to Powell, another 10 to Terrence Mann, another 10 to Mason Plumlee. Let's start with Kawhi. What do you think at 9,400?
I think it's just kind of tough to get there when you have other guys in that price range that look really good. So it kind of puts him back into the like Jalen Brunson, Trae Young type category where he's getting ownership at 16%, but not as much as some other guys. I prefer getting to Brown. I prefer getting to Tatum. I prefer getting to Mitchell, but those guys are all getting more ownership. The field prefers it as well. So I think he's still a high upside contrarian play. That goes without saying. It's Kawhi Leonard, but I do prefer getting to those other similarly priced guys.
Yeah, I don't have much. If I had him, I'd be fine with it, but I don't. How do you want to handle Russ? 36.5 minutes on Sunday was the straight drizzling shits if you were trying to get him to make a basket. How do you manage him at 7,800 today?
Should he really be higher owned than Jalen Brunson?
I don't have any, so you're asking the wrong guy.
Like I get him as a play. He's going to play big minutes. He's going to have opportunities to put up a big game. It's just so is Jalen Brunson, and Jalen Brunson is better.
Yeah, I have Jalen Brunson pretty significantly ahead of Russell Westbrook today. So I'm with you. I agree. And look, and I'm already not getting to Brunson. So if I'm not getting to Brunson, I'm sure as shit not getting to Russ. Like he's a worse play. That I completely agree with.
Yeah. So we have him going underowned. I don't know. I would rather play Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I'm trying to take my Russell Westbrook hate out of this discussion, but he can't go 3 for 19 again before Ty Lue blows his top. He's much more likely to me to play less than 36.5 minutes than more than 36.5 minutes like he did on Sunday. The downside in his playing time is there, whether it's going to Terrence Mann or Norm Powell. They have more Bones Highland. I don't know. Marcus Morris comes back into the rotation. To me, they're more likely to cut him than push him, especially if he continues to shoot like he was. Do you think he's more apprehensive shooting today?
Probably not.
Okay. It's just him.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's your favorite play on the Clippers?
Powell at 5,200.
Okay. I can handle that.
At least in tournaments.
Sure.
Just getting 14% ownership. And he's in a spot where, kind of like you were saying, there is some volatility with Westbrook's playing time. There's going to be some volatility with Eric Gordon's playing time. He played 32 and a half last game, but he doesn't have to play those minutes. If Norm Powell plays well, he certainly could get more. He played 23 last game at 5,200. That could get it done anyway. But there's just multiple ways that, especially if he's playing well, he can just find his way into more minutes. So 14% seems a little bit low at that price with that position eligibility.
Thoughts on 30% owned Zubats at 5K?
I think he's good just because, again, center is pretty weak today. He is projected to go a bit over owned. I think that he's a better play than Robert Williams, but not like 2-1 better.
Yeah.
Similar with Capella. I'd rather play a 5K Zubats than a $5,800 Capella. But when you give me half the ownership on Capella in tournaments, that becomes kind of interesting.
Yeah. And again, like he played 29 and a half minutes. He doesn't have to. And this Clippers team has a million different options to try to change that, whether that's more Mason Plumlee, going small 5 out with whoever you want to say is the center in that situation, whether they exhume Robert Covington or Marcus Morris. I'm shocked that Marcus Morris is not a part of this rotation right now. I did not see that coming. He might just be full on cooked, but I also would not be surprised if he just shows up and plays 24 minutes in one of these games.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't be shocking, but I don't think he's particularly good anymore.
No, but like, you've got KD on the opposite side. If you're looking for like that pseudo PJ Tucker type guy to be out there, like that's what they're going to do. Like we're going to see Covington or Marcus Morris show up in the series when we don't expect it. It's not something that you can plan for or play, but like I expect it if this goes the way that it's going. Now I got to ask you about my guy in this one. I don't know what to do with it right now. What do you want to do with Terrence Mann, 3,800 point guard, shooting guard eligible?
I think it's just another like ownership consideration. 13% is a bit higher than you're getting on Okoro, but obviously Mann is a better point per minute guy. Although the more minutes he's playing with Kawhi, with Westbrook, obviously those rates are going to go down. But played 24 minutes last game. It's another really scary rotation though, where he closed the game. He played the final 16 minutes and 10 seconds of the game after playing like 8 minutes in the first half. So it's kind of scary. But at 3,800, I do like the fact that he closed that game and that they won. You kind of would think that there's a good chance that he's rewarded and gets more minutes here. And, I guess worst case isn't 16 to 18 minutes, but if he plays 16 to 18 minutes, you could still get there at 3,800.
He also closed the second quarter. I don't want to look into that too much. Maybe like they just didn't want to have Russ pick up another foul in the final minute or something like that. But I gave him 24 minutes. That's what he played on Sunday. I think there's upside for it. He's my preferred value option on today's slate. I think that he's ripe to play more if they need it.
Agreed.
Scares me. Anybody else here? Batum, Plumlee, Bones?
I'll say, do you have any interest in Plumlee? He's kind of Hartenstein, Okongwu, but a little bit less good.
I'm not getting to any of those guys. I'm not getting to I've got a pretty big stand on Okoro, on Chetty. I'm getting Terrence Mann. So like I'm just not in the backup center business today.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Also, and I guess, it's just a tournament conversation, but going back to Chetty, people mentioned it in chat, but I did see the highlights of it. Like they were trying to put him on Brunson at the end of that game and it was going horribly. So like, I don't think that, and we said it when we talked about this game, I don't think the most likely outcome is that Chetty plays a lot of minutes at all.
No,
it's just more so that he's 6% owned. And if for some reason he does, then that works.
Somebody like that is going to do it today. Like there's no reason it can't be Chetty.
Okoro did also get elbowed in the face in that game.
I don't know how you know that.
It was one of the 3 possessions or 4 possessions I saw.
Okay. I was gonna say holy shit, man. That's of all the things.
Yeah, Julius Randle thrilled him.
Bones. I don't see it in the playoffs.
I was surprised he played 13 minutes.
I think he's more likely to just become Robert Covington or Marcus Morris before this one's over. Well, that's the Clippers. Very interesting team to talk about. Did I ask you like that? Like, who's the best play on the Clippers?
I said Powell in tournaments.
Okay.
I don't really know who I like the most. I guess Zubats in terms of just who would be most likely to show up most often for me.
I would have said Gordon there.
Yeah, Gordon would be the second one.
Okay.
I think it's the cheap guys though. Like Kawhi obviously is good, but there's other guys in that price range that I prefer. Westbrook obviously gives you a high ceiling, but there's other guys in that price range I prefer. So it kind of just pushes me towards, Zubats, Gordon, Powell in tournaments. Man.
When Russ goes 15, 15, and 15 today, I'm going to be real sick to my stomach.
I might
And the
actually
word,
tune
like,
into.
I hate him, but it's that, like, that is in play.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and that's
All
why
right.
he's still like a solid DFS play.
Yep. All right. So my filler Arcadis with the super chat earlier, Randall or Booker. I mean, that's Booker for me
Agreed.
by a lot. So I wanted to hit on that one. And then we just got another one here from Brajal. Nice to have him here with the big super chat. LOL. These funds are for bail. Hope the dude who is texting and these funds are for bail for the dude who is texting and driving. Great. Hope everyone is doing well and good luck tonight. This site is amazing. Brajal, you're amazing. Thanks for the super chat, man. Happy to have it. And I'm glad you're sending in $20 because I'm quite confident nobody else would want to bail him out of anything.
Yeah, speaking of sending money, just to clarify this, because I'm tired of typing it. Scott McMillan is again saying that he sent me a $500 head-to-head that he didn't. My screen name on DraftKings is Ship My Money. I don't know if you're sending it to Ship My Money DFS to the wrong thing. I don't know, but it's not there, but I would gladly play you.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you would. Phoenix Suns, we're closing it out. Big minutes out of the starters, 43 out of Booker, 44 out of Durant, 39 out of Paul, 33 out of Ayton, which is going to be a pretty big conversation point for me. 25, 20, 25, 25, 25, 25. That's the ownership for the starting five for Phoenix, who also got Torrey Craig in the starting lineup here. Who is the best play for Phoenix right now? And tell me, why is it Devin Booker?
That whole team just looks really, really similar. I do like the $8,700 price tag on Booker. Like, you're just getting him at a little bit of a discount off of Mitchell, a little bit of a discount off of Kawhi, pretty big discount off of Tatum. So yeah, I mean, Booker's going to play huge minutes. That goes without saying. Played 43 last game, played the entire second half. I really like the tournament upside he gives you at 20%. I like the upside you're getting from Durant at 25% also, but
Same.
you know, he is a little bit more expensive, so I think I would lean towards Booker.
Yeah, I'm getting all of the Booker today. So my entire night will hinge upon him having a big game tonight. Chris Paul seems pretty tough for me at 7,200. I don't think he looked great late on Sunday. Got 39 minutes. Do you have any interest in Paul? 25% owned. I mean, like, I guess like a little.
Yeah, sure. It's Chris Paul at 7,200. I don't know how to quantify Scott Foster reffing this game, but it's certainly not a good thing for Chris Paul. But you know, 25% ownership, 7,200, I think is perfectly fine.
Okay. Torrey Craig, 4,200, power forward only, 25% owned, played 27 minutes, probably lost a couple in the fourth quarter to foul trouble. I think he just looks like a really nice value option at 4,200 here. I don't think he's going anywhere for this matchup. Yeah,
agreed. Assuming he stays in the starting lineup, which I would expect him to. 4,200 just looks good. Like you said, dealt with some fouls in the fourth quarter. Still got to 27 minutes. So you're never confident in Torrey Craig, but no. I think he looks good at that price.
He's not a bad per minute guy. He is not what everybody I assume thinks Torrey Craig is.
Yeah, he's what, like 0.8?
Yeah. 0.95 over the past 30 days. Not that I'm doing that. I got him at 0.75 for the game, but either way, I'm getting to 2x Craig. I'm getting to many X's of Booker. I'm getting to 2x as well of DeAndre Ayton, 6,200. He's 25% owned. And I think he's live for really big minutes here.
My concern is just how bad he's been since Kevin Durant got there. He's at 0.96 DraftKings points per minute in 9 games with Durant, 17.5% usage rate. He clearly has taken a step back, but at that price tag and on a slate that's weak at center, I'm with you as far as thinking he's still a good play here. I think the price tag's just sort of already adjusted for what he's been with Durant. This isn't, it would be a different conversation if you were still coming in at, 7,200, 7,300, and you're really saying like, all right, how much do we buy into Ayton being this bad with Durant going forward? Do they figure it out? Because like one thing to keep in mind is those first couple games he played with Durant, he had like a 12% usage rate.
Yeah.
You've clearly seen it correct a bit. And I do think it's likely that you see the point per minute production come up at least a little bit as we get a larger sample. But at 6,200, it just kind of alleviates a lot of those concerns also, because if he plays mid to upper 30s, he only played 33 last game, dealt with some fouls in the second half. If he plays mid to upper 30s at about a fantasy point per minute, you're still very happy with that at 6,200.
Yeah, and I just don't get the sense that the Suns are really excited to go to Bismack Biyombo and Jock Landale in the playoffs. I think they're more likely to just go small in these scenarios and go to KD at the 5. I don't know how much they actually want to do that, but I think the more likely scenario is Ayton plays big minutes. I gave him 34, and I think he's very live for 36 or 37 in this spot. Love getting to Ayton. Don't think that you could roster a single thing other than the starting 5 for Phoenix.
You don't think you can play Landry Shamet?
If Campaign is in, no.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, he played 24 minutes because Campaign wasn't around.
Right.
He's basically going to back up the 1 and back up the 2. If Campaign plays and takes the backup point guard run to Chris Paul, then like I think Shamet's dead.
Yeah, okay, I think that's fair.
If Campaign is out, then Landry Shamet's the only guy that you can get to.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, like I gave Shamet 16 minutes. If Payne is out, I'll probably get Shamet up to like 22 or something like that. And at that point, you can start rostering him at 3,700. But with my assumption that Payne is in right now, to me, there's no path for Shamet.
Somebody just sent me a $5 head-to-head. I really hope it's not this guy that said 500 in chat.
I think somebody mentioned that they also sent you one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They didn't give the minutes to Okogie. I mean, they basically just played everybody else 5 minutes, for the most part. Like, it was just a slop fest around the starters.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's some chance that Okogie finds extra minutes, I guess. And like, he's a good point per minute guy. But like, if Craig gets in like massive foul trouble, I guess would probably be the case there.
I got nothing else here, man. Who are your top 3 favorite plays for today's slate? And then we'll get out of here, turn it over to Live Before Lock.
All right, let me get off of those 2 teams. Jalen, Allen, White.
All righty. Well, folks, thank you to Bet365 for being the sponsor. Thank you to most of you guys for being here. 1,800 people, 250 likes. It's been a great show. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. We're going to have some fun tonight, folks. Great slate. NBA Live Before Lock, and then we're out. Peace.
Yo, you know what time it is. It's that time of week again. Yeah, Stokastic Hall of Fame time. Giving out some free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, $120 action there to a lot of you today. And getting you inducted into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. What's better than that? See your name up there in bright lights. Also get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You're trying to get your name up here, trying to get the month. All you got to do is go to stokastic.com/avatar. Download that profile picture right there, stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at StokasticHOF. Stokastic Hall of Fame with a screenshot. Maybe you want to say something nice too. You don't have to, but if you want to, that's cool as well. And get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and we'll do it each and every week. Let's get it started. Now, a man who he's with us here at Stokastic. We got to shout out our own guy here, Steve Buzzard, because what a monster week we saw from Steve, using and repping the Stokastic MLB tools. Pumped MLB is back, and this is the Colts, by the way. 2 tips to win all the money this year. 1, the MLB tools from Stokastic are hands down the best in the industry. 2, always be sure to make at least one lineup stacking the Dodgers. That's the first 100K from Steve. Then we got 3 days in a row from Steve, 50K. Mixed in there was another 100K, and I believe a live finals qualifier ticket as well. Shout out to Steve, absolutely repping Stokastic in a huge way over the early stages of the MLB season. And Dave as well with the Stokastic Avatar. 2nd place in the 4-seamer. Love the top stacks tool. Hell yeah, man. Glad to see it worked for you. $2,500, 2nd place for Dave. Followed up by Calvin. Use the Masters promotion to give the PGA lineup generator a try. Yeah, first week, $4.48. Can't beat it. Help me get 1 birdie away from taking it all. Had the old avatar, just updated to the new one. Hopefully I can still get my free money. Yeah, we got you, man. We got you. Thank you guys for all the insightful content. Congrats, dude. That's awesome to see. Using the brand new PGA lineup generator. And Lisa, been a good start to the MLB season. Thanks to Stokastic, plus a bonus of the free month. Yeah, Jujubee, you've been up here before. $500. First place in the mini max all day. We'll take that. And Dave, another Dave Oliver. Thank you guys for your awesome MLB content. Well, thanks for using it. Thanks for watching us, Dave. 3rd, 4th, and 5th place in the Monday MLB pinch hit. Rocking another Stokastic avatar, but still Stokastic nonetheless. Get the one that says it, though, man. It looks better. XFL expert El Quattro Loco took down the quarter jukebox last night thanks to hashtag Fade Cores and the Cubs going off in a shootout last night. Yeah, first place in the jukebox for El Quattro Loco. Nice little $166 win there. Followed up by Andrew. Nice to get in the Stokastic Hall of Fame early into the baseball season. Best tools in the business, especially for baseball. Yeah, shout out to you, Andrew. First place quarter juke. Dude, our guys just crushed the quarter jukebox every single week. Travis Scott, I'm not rocking the avatar, so I don't expect a free month. That's all right. If you could give me a shout out, that'd be greatly appreciated. Ship the mini max, like I said, quarter jukebox, mini max. Turn the cool 75 into 1500. Congrats, man. Get that avatar up there. You don't want me to have to start talking bad about your Raptors who couldn't make it through the play-ins, man. I remember you. I remember what you said about the Sixers every single year, particularly last year when they, of course, beat the Raptors. But shout out to Travis. We like Travis here. Congrats on the $1,500 win. And Jorge, our guy, the giver of gifts in all YouTube chats. Amazing projections and right on the spot. Finally, your Phillies, Lofty. Finally. Help me out. Shout out for today's show and tips from EMAC and Digital and Terry McBride. Help getting the same lineup 2nd and 4th in the Minimax today. Thanks to Stokastic for amazing tools. That's awesome, Jorge. You were up here last week, I think, too. What's that? $1,320-some, 2nd and 4th place. Beautiful stuff. And then you've got Colin. We got a lot today. Told you. Shout out to Petty Theft. Yeah, friend of the show. We like Petty Theft here, too. And Neil Orfield for being goats at what they do individually. Thanks as well as Stokastic HOF. $800, first place in the end one. The Ultimate Fight Show. Shout out to my peeps, Stokastic.com, for all their insight. Went off their recommendations, but had a few specific plays that hit. Keep up the great work. Yeah, okay. Some monster parlay wins, 25 in the almost 1,900. And don't forget our Bet Pro tool, Odd Shopper. All that's free for the first week. You got links in the description, guys, if you want to check those out. And Ryan finished 2nd out of 55K in the 25-cent contest last night. Great tools led to a nice bankroll booster for a small stakes player like me. Hell yeah, dude. $250 on the quarter pinch hit. We'll take it. And finally, Cohen. I was a Wiggins 3 away from taking down my first tournament. Shout out to the Live Before Lock crew. Always dropping knowledge. And won $400, 3rd place. Shout out to all you guys. Download the avatar at Stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF. Get inducted into the Hall of Fame. We'll welcome you back if you've been here before as well, and get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum.
What is happening, everybody, and welcome to another Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock. And I've actually got a 3-game playoff slate today, so not a 2-gamer. We got 3 games and a couple players on the injury report. Nothing too crazy, but still, we should mention that at least as of now, Campaign is questionable, Jalen Johnson is questionable, and with it being just a 3-game slate, I do think it matters, at least to some extent, to point those guys out in case they do get rolled out. It could open up playing time for a couple of other players. As you guys come in, if you could be so kind, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. For today, we're sponsored by Bet365, and I'll wait to do the read until Jordan comes back from his potty break so we can get all the different graphics and whatnot.
I didn't even notice he was gone.
But I'm always paying attention to these things because you got to know, you got to be paying attention to these things when you're hosting. So you make sure all the graphics and all the right things go up in the YouTube chat and whatnot. But all aside, Neil, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's beautiful Tuesday. It's like 50 and sunny here in Minnesota. I got trivia coming up after the show. So yeah, it's a good day. How are you doing?
I am doing well, just working on some of my lines and also making sure that I retweet the show link right now. But yeah, it's good. I'm looking forward to the games tonight. We have Atlanta, Boston, maybe less so that one than some of the other games on the slate. Knicks, Cleveland, that was good the first game and should be fairly tight, 5.5 point spread. And then Phoenix trying to even the series against the LA Clippers. Of the 3 games on the show, on the slate tonight, which are you looking forward to the most?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably Clippers, Phoenix. I think it's, the fact that Clippers took game 1. I think Phoenix, clearly everybody has favored to win the series. So I kind of feel like with the Clippers being up, it would be kind of fun to see them take a 2-game lead. I think I lean that one. How about you?
Yeah, for the purpose of my futures bets, I would prefer that didn't happen just because I bet the Suns to win the championship and to win the Western Conference right before the Kevin Durant trade. So I've got really good numbers on them. Obviously, who cares what kind of closing line value you have if they get knocked out in the first round? It wouldn't really be all that great for that purpose. But still, it's a game that I'm looking forward to for tonight. I do expect the Clippers to end up, the Clippers to fall and the Suns to even the series. Do you give the Clippers a realistic chance to win right now, though?
I think with Kawhi, like any team that has Kawhi, I give a chance. Like I think they have maybe honestly not even that bad of a chance. I think I'd probably give the Clippers like a 35% chance of winning the series. I think they have a real shot here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's unrealistic. I mean, also, like if you look at 538, for instance, they are fairly high on the Clippers, and something that I'm taking note of and I'm curious about. So I've noticed that fairly frequently when we are looking at how people respond to and live bet and stuff like that, I do think a lot of people just tend to, oh my God, a big favorite is down early. I have to bet them right now. 538 and there are flaws with 538, the different projections they have and whatnot, but they do now have live in-game projections where as the games are happening, they're going to give you the percentage odds of each team winning. We'll be like, oh, this team is 60% chance to win. This team is 40% chance. And one thing I noticed about game 1 is there was points in times in that game where like the Clippers would be up 6, but they'd be like plus 140 on the betting odds. And then I went to 538, just kind of cross-reference, and it would be like, well, they say the Clippers have a 60% chance of winning. It's like, yeah, they're up 6 points in the fourth quarter. Why wouldn't they? But everybody's like, the Suns are going to come back, right? So I do wonder if there's an edge in sports betting, and I'm not saying I'm going to act on this yet, but I'm keeping an eye on it. To if a big favorite gets down big early in the game, but they kind of remain a favorite on the betting line, or if it's close odds on the betting line, I'm going to pay attention to some of those live in-game projections from 538. I suspect there is value in a lot of those spots because I think there are a lot of people who will just blindly bet any favorite that's losing early. Does that make sense?
No, I think you're absolutely right. The people just see that and they're like, I thought this team was going to win before the game, so obviously I still think they're going to win the game. Yeah, I think that definitely happens a fair amount. And I should point out, so people in chat have said the Hawks actually did come out and say that Jalen Johnson is not on the injury report. They have nobody on the injury report anymore. There seems to be some like conflicting information out there, but I think the latest information from the Hawks themselves is that they have nobody on the injury report. So that's one that we don't have to worry about as much, I don't think.
Fair enough. We still do have to look out for Campaign, who I do think is realistically questionable for today. It's hard to know exactly where he's at because game 1 of the series, he sat out. He remains on the injury report. He missed a bunch of time this year. And just considering that he has already missed the game, it seems fairly likely that he would at least be questionable and that we should bring his status into doubt here. But I do want to ask you, is this something that you are considering it all in your lineups, or is he just a low enough player in terms of minutes and his overall role on the team that you think his absence isn't something we really have to think too much about as we build our lineups today?
I mean, it definitely affects Landry Shamet. Like I'm expecting bigger minutes for Landry Shamet if Campaign does sit. So in that sense, I would say it does affect things. Like I'll have a good amount of interest in a low-owned Landry Shamet, I think, if Cameron Payne is out again.
All right, fair enough. No, I think that is definitely sensible, to say the least, if we end up seeing that end up being the case. And if you guys have any questions for us, I see some of them coming in right now in the YouTube chat. If you got super chats, leave those for us. If you guys are a Stokastic Plus Platinum member and you're in our Discord channel, add me in Discord. We could answer some of your questions. Starting off the day, got a DK Tiers question from Hannah Banana. Hannah wants to know, DK Tiers, please, and also sending good vibes to all. So good vibes and DK Tiers question. All right. Tiers. Tier 1, I have Kevin Durant. So Jason, I'll do the same thing I did the other day, which is I'll give everybody 2 options, but I will say who my favorite option is in the tier. So tier 1, I think the 2 top options are pretty clearly Jason Tatum and Kevin Durant. I do lean with Tatum over KD in tier 1. Tier 2, Jaylen Brown is my favorite option. Trae Young is my second favorite. Tier 3, Devin Booker is my favorite option. Russell Westbrook is my second favorite. Tier 4, Chris Paul is my favorite. Jared Allen is my second favorite. Tier 5, Derek White as my favorite. Al Horford, second favorite. And then tier 6, we've got Robert Williams as my favorite. Malcolm Brogdon as my second favorite. So one thing I also want to ask you here, Neil, is we have seen different looking rotations in the playoffs. I don't know how much you've taken note of. Star players are playing a bunch of extra minutes. And I think that this might be something that just kind of underprojected generally throughout the industry as all. And I know it's hard to project some of these stud players to go out and play, north of 40 minutes. But I look at some of these scenarios like game 1, Donovan Mitchell played 44 minutes against the Knicks. And I know nobody's projecting him that way. And I do wonder, is there something to going a little bit heavier stars and scrubs and prioritizing these high-end guys just because there is more of a minute ceiling than maybe it might seem when it first meets the eye? When you're seeing some of these guys, like if there's a competitive game between the Suns and the Clippers, we know the Suns lost game 1. Kevin Durant probably plays like 43, 44 minutes. Same with like a Donovan Mitchell after they lost game 1. Is that something you're considering at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, so the only reason it hasn't been that easy to do so far is we've had so little in the way of value. Like we've had so many, so little good value options so far. I do think that we have some more interesting, at least a wider variety of sort of interesting value guys. So I think that it's a little bit easier today to go stars and scrubs than it has been so far in the playoffs. But absolutely, like it's to be expected in the playoffs, right? The stars are going to generally play more minutes as long as the game is competitive. So this isn't some big surprise, but it still has been hard, when we've had stars that look pretty good that we want to play, it's been hard to find value to go with them. So we've kind of been forced into a little bit more mid-range so far. But I do think today it's more viable even than it has been so far to just mix in some more scrubs. And, there's a wide variety that I think there's enough scrubs on this slate that I think have a possibility to do well, that I think somebody will. I think it's still hard to predict who it's going to be, but yeah, there are more scrubs that I have interest on this slate. So I do think that this is shaping up to me to be a little bit more stars and scrubsy than so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, so definitely something that I'm thinking about as I build my lineups. And then, so it's kind of twofold though, right? Because it's a double-edged sword, because if we're expecting the star players to play more minutes, and it means I want to get to more of the stars, it also means the shitty scrub players I'm projecting to play less minutes. And then it's kind of like I have these top-end guys projected really well, and then it's really hard to find some of the salary savings to get down to them. So we'll be discussing some of our favorite pay-up options and some of our favorite salary saving plays as we go here. But let me look in Discord to see if anybody did leave any questions for us, and not quite yet. So before we get into that, I want to tell you guys the easiest way you could potentially make money today. And that is with our sponsor, Bet365. So if you guys haven't signed up at Bet365 or taken advantage of the offer they have right now, you make a deposit, $10. You bet $1 on anything, $1 anything over at Bet365. And that is going to pay out $200 in bonus bets, regardless if that bet wins or loses. This is the easiest way to make money that we have going right now. It is only available in a couple of states, 4 states, unfortunately. But if you're in one of these states, you live close by, I think you should be taking advantage of this. New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, any 4 of those states, you could take advantage of this Bet365 offer. And if you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. So it's the best part of the ad read. Always. Just
love reading that.
Gotta make sure that we're up to all the rules and regulations.
I love listening to Laffy read that in particular. Just listening to Laffy read that part of the read is always fun.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I've seen some people like podcasts or other people, they're really sincere because they don't really know, because I don't really know the exact right turn you're supposed to do too. But some people read it as if like they're talking to somebody who actually has a problem and they're really sincere about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, I'm just trying to get the information across, but I'll see people who's like, oh my God, is he going to start crying? Like, this is very
I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, I've seen some people get pretty into it. But anyway, we move forward and let's start right away just at the top end, Neil, because there are, do you have any lineups built in front of you, by the way?
I don't yet, but I'm about to run some. So yeah, I'd be ready to go any minute.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask if we go kind of position by position, just talking about some of the high end players and then also some of the lower end players that we'd be targeting at each spot. So if we look at, and I guess we could do mid-range as well, but like point guard, what we want to pay up for, what we want to save salary with, what we want to go to in the mid-range. And one thing that just immediately jumps out to me as I build my lineups and look at the mid-range of point guard, assuming he starts again, Derek White is very difficult to get away from on this slate. Yeah. He's projected to be really popular. The most, if I'm going to recall this off the top of my head, I'm fairly sure the single most popular player on the entire slate today is Derek White. Yep. The question becomes, though, in large field tournaments, we want to be overweight to the field, underweight to the field, or underweight to the field to the single most popular point guard play. As of right now, I am a little bit overweight, and I think cash game's lock. Go play Derek White. I assume he's going to stick in the starting lineup. Game one, I thought they were going to start Robert Williams. They didn't. He came off the bench. It didn't matter. Robert Williams still had a really big game. How do you view Derek White as being a massive chalk option at point guard?
Yeah, it's interesting. We actually see some negative leverage in the boom bust tool. So that's obviously the first place that I'm going to look, because I think it's a really tough call, because yeah, my instinct is like, he's clearly too cheap, projects really well point per dollar. So I want to play a lot of Derek White. He makes it into a lot of my lineups naturally, but I do see in the boom bust tool, 42% ownership, 34% chance of being optimal, 13% chance of booming. So my guess is I'm going to bring it down to being probably close to the field. Like, I don't think that I'm going to go well under the field on Derek White against Atlanta. It's such a great spot that it's really hard for me to want to fade Derek White, but I do think that I'm probably going to get down to like close to the field at 42%.
Yeah. So right now I'm looking at my lineups that I have built, and I do have Derek White in 53% of my lineups. So a little bit more than half, a little bit overweight to the field, but still that makes him somebody who I'm getting a lot of exposure to today. So Derek White, I think, is a really good option in the mid-range, and somebody you guys should absolutely be playing cash games, FanDuel and DraftKings. If you are paying up at point guard though, Neil, we've got a handful of options you could pay up for. And let me find the right tab here. I've got very early on, I already have a million tabs in front of me, which is never a good way to start the show. If I've already got this many tabs in front of me, it's only going to grow as we get later on the action. So I want to look at all of the point guards who are 7,000 and above, because there's a handful of them today. There's nobody who's like 10K plus. We don't have Steph Curry or anything like that, but we've got Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Jalen Brunson, Russell Westbrook, Darius Garland, Chris Paul. Of these pay up point guard options, once again, all the ones 7K and above on DK, who is the priority for you today?
I mean, they're priorities in different ways. So I'd say Darius Garland, probably the one I'm going to have the most of. He just projects the best point per dollar at 7,400. I really do like Darius Garland. I do have a lot of interest in like both Trae Young and DeJounte Murray as just super low owned plays that we know have upside. Like, would anybody be shocked if Trae Young came out and put up 56 fantasy points, even against Boston? Trae Young is capable of putting up a ton of fantasy points, even against Boston. If his shot is on, carrying Atlanta to keep the game close. So I do have interest in Trae Young at 8% projected ownership as well. So I would say the easiest answer is probably Jalen Brunson, but I do have interest in both Trae Young and DeJounte Murray to a somewhat lesser extent, just as like really contrarian options as well.
Yeah, so I am going to go in a slightly different direction here, and it's kind of related to what I said before. I really like Donovan Mitchell, and this is a point of the year where I don't even know if we'd call it a narrative, but he played so many minutes in last game, and that paired with the Cavs being down 1-0 and this being a home game, it's to me, it's dumb when the talking heads come out and say this is a must-win game for us. Nothing's a must-win game until you're down 3-0. Unless it's an elimination game, it's not a must-win game. You've always gotten out to lose the game and end up coming back to win the series. But I expect the Cavs to run their rotation as if this is a do-or-die game. With that in mind, 44 minutes out of Donovan Mitchell last game. I think he plays 40-plus minutes again today, unless it's a blowout or there's foul trouble or anything like that, or an injury. So with that in mind, Donovan Mitchell, who, by the way, has played over 40 minutes in every single game since March 26th. We have gone almost a month since Donovan Mitchell has played less than 40 minutes. I love targeting him, and I just don't think anybody's projecting his minutes properly.
Yeah, I think that is fair. I mean, the price is at 9,200, ownership up at 25%. So those are the knocks on Donovan Mitchell, but obviously projects well. And yeah, if we're expecting him to play, I mean, we have him for 40 minutes. We actually have him projected for 40 minutes, and his projection is then 47 at 40 minutes. So he looks pretty good. It's just the ownership is so high that's the biggest knock on Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. And I mean, still, it's not like it's that high for a 3-game slate. Yeah. It's not like the ownership is that, like, if this was a 10-game slate, yeah, that's a lot of ownership. Is that a lot of ownership for a 3-game slate? Not
That's
really.
a good point. Yeah, really, we don't have any super chalk here. Like, we don't have anybody who's coming in at 80% owned. The highest owned player that we have on the entire slate, as you said, is Derek White at, let's see, we've got him at 45% right now, which is fairly chalky for a 3-gamer, but still not anything too crazy. Oh, sorry, that's a point guard. And, but he is overall as well.
We did just get the starting lineup for the Cavs, and I was interested to see, I thought there was a chance that Okoro would be out of the starting lineup. Not the case. So they're starting Garland, Mitchell, Okoro, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. So we've got a fairly normal looking starting lineup for them today. Now let's look through some of the other point guards that we have to talk about. And we've talked about the high end, talked about the mid-range, and I know I kind of jumped around. I wanted to start with the mid-range just because there's so much ownership on Derek White that he kind of stands out from a point guard standpoint. Is there any value that catches your eye at point guard?
Yes. Let me sort by salary, look at the value a little bit. Sort of interested in Landry Shamet, with the assumption that Campaign might miss. I think that if Campaign does miss, then we can expect Landry Shamet to pick up a few extra minutes. Obviously, he played in game one. What did he play? 24 minutes in game one. If we could project Landry Shamet for 24 minutes, he's going to project fairly well for us. That would put him at 21.5 fantasy points at 3,700. So he would look great if we projected him for 24 minutes. We're obviously not doing that right now. We still have Campaign in there, but I think that Landry Shamet, at least somebody that I'm going to consider holding out a spot for, because I think it really is close to 50-50 with Campaign right now. Do you have any strong read there?
It's tough. I'm going to say what I said yesterday, and that is, given that it's a playoff scenario, I think he plays. How effective he is, how many minutes he gets, it was a Jordan Poole I was talking about yesterday.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a similar scenario. I think he's going to try to play. They're down 1-0, but it's hard for me to click that button just because I don't know how effective he's going to be or how many minutes he's going to be able to play. So he's not somebody I'm really getting exposure to. But I am going to assume that he's in. I haven't projected in, and I'm going to leave it that way until we hear otherwise.
Yep. I think that is reasonable. Honestly, I guess at point guard in particular, the value is not particularly strong. I have some interest in Terrence Mann, Bones Highland as well. But outside of, those three, Landry Shamet, Terrence Mann, Bones Highland, I think are all playable, but like none of them jump out to me as incredible options here. I think my favorite would probably be Terrence Mann, followed by Landry Shamet, with the hope that Campaign does miss, just taking that shot, and then Bones Highland probably third of that group. But none of them are like my favorite value plays on the slate. I think they're all playable, but none are like my must plays.
One thing that's pretty funny there, because you mentioned Terrence Mann, I don't have a ton of exposure to Terrence Mann, but assuming nothing was to change about the slate as we go, he is in my best projected lineup, and I have him in single entry right now. So take that for what it's worth. But I do have Terrence Mann in my single entry lineup right now. And, Russell Westbrook played really, really well defensively in game one. Really well. Offensively, he played really, really, really poorly. And at the end of the day, I don't know the Clippers win that game without Russell Westbrook. I was clowning on him on Twitter in the first half of the game because, he shot 3 of 18 from the field, something like that. He got off to a tremendously poor start. But then he still was able to make big winning plays down the stretch of the game with the defense. The way this is going to tie into Terrence Mann is that in the regular season, Terrence Mann was really valuable for the Clippers, particularly before they had Russell Westbrook. He was playing a big role. He was starting for them. Game one, he played 24 minutes, and that was even with Russell Westbrook having what I would call a ceiling game from an actual impact perspective, if that makes sense. So It wasn't that he went out and scored 60 fantasy points or anything like that, but he had a massive impact on the game. We have not seen Westbrook impact winning in that many games so far this year. Even though we saw Russell Westbrook play that well in the second half, we still got 24 minutes out of Terrence Mann. And there is a non-zero possibility that Russell Westbrook, if he is to struggle, and not have the same defensive impact he did last game, there's a chance that Terrence Mann does close the game over Russell Westbrook. So it is something that's at least within the realm of possibility. So Terrence Mann on a slate where there isn't that much value, and I'm kind of trying to manipulate the logic to figure out why I might want to get to him. He's somebody who's really cheap and does have a path to bigger minutes after playing 24 minutes in game one.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that Terrence Mann looks. It's funny hearing you say you think Russell Westbrook did affect them winning. They might not have won without it. Whereas Josh and Lofty got into it pretty hardcore on, I don't know, whatever the day was right after that game. And of course, Josh's take is, well, they wouldn't have been in that position without Westbrook. He was so bad the entire game, which I didn't watch the game, so I don't actually have a strong opinion on whether Westbrook helped or hurt the Clippers there. But shooting 3 for 19 certainly not great.
So I'm going to let Jordan Klein weigh in. Jordan Klein is as big of a Timberwolves fan you are, Neil. I would say Jordan is pretty comparable for the Clippers. Jordan, would you? Oh, by the way, Giannis listed doubtful for tomorrow, so it looks like Giannis is not going to play. Jordan, Russell Westbrook in game one, would you consider him overall a positive or a negative for the Clippers? There we go. Jordan Klein calls him a positive. Jordan has called him a positive. That settles it. Just like the other day, we had to go to Jordan about the block, the charge, and per Jordan's rules, he loves the charge rule. He thinks the best rule in the NBA, so it's sticking. And just like that, Jordan has also declared Russell Westbrook was valuable in game one. I tend to agree. Super chat from James Magruder. He wants to know the top play at each position on DK and the best value. So yeah, let's run through each position. We're kind of starting to do that, but I think this is a good way to do it as well. Let's look at each position, and we could just go which player we expect to score the most points at that position, and then which player we think is the best value at each position. So starting at point guard, Neil, I'm going to say Donovan Mitchell as the best pay up option. Do you agree?
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell, the highest projected player at point guard by more than 4 fantasy points. So he's the pretty easy option there.
Shooting guard? Oh no, actually, let's round up point guard. I know he says best value. If it has to be cheap, I'm going to say Terrence Mann. But if we're just going overall best points per dollar play, it's Derek White.
Yeah, I like that. I think I wholeheartedly agree with those. Since we're not really factoring in ownership here. I don't think so. Yeah. Those are the easy calls there. Shooting guard,
Also Donovan Mitchell, also Derek White. But are there any value? Well, all right, it's a lot of the same guys. It's going to be Donovan Mitchell and then Derek White as the best value. Outside of Terrence Mann, though, who is a good points per dollar play for cheap at the shooting guard position do you think people should be saving money with?
Yeah, so shooting guard also not particularly great as far as value goes. But I mean, in both cases, you can play Landry Shamet, but I'd be a lot less interested. Oh, I guess Karis LeVert. It projects fairly well for us at 4,300. I actually got him in 62% of my lineups the first crunch I ran, which I'm trying to get away from that. Obviously, I don't want to have 62% Karis LeVert, but as far as point per dollar goes, we have projected for around 21 fantasy points at 4,300, and on this slate, that is fine at shooting guard.
Yeah, I'll go with Karis LeVert as well. To me, he's really close. Him and Eric Gordon. I think they're two really similar plays. But I'll use Eric Gordon at small forward and kind of try to, I'll do some game theory for asking a super chat. So I'll save Eric Gordon for the small forward position. And talking about small forward, we've got some studs at the position. We've got Jason Tatum. We've got Kevin Durant. We've got Kawhi Leonard. Of those pay up options, who stands out the most?
Yeah, again, I'm just going with the projections here. And we have Jason Tatum at nearly 8 fantasy points better than the second best small forward. That second best being Jaylen Brown, who also just missed out of the conversation in shooting guard. He also is a great point per dollar play at 8,500. But yeah, Tatum down at 9,800 just looks really good against this Atlanta team. Hard not to call him the top projected pay up option.
Even in a blowout in game one, not an especially competitive game. I know the final score was 13 points, which doesn't look, it was never in doubt. There was never a point you're watching that game and you thought, oh, the Hawks might win. The Celtics fairly comfortably held. And I think at halftime, they were up like nearly 30 points or something like that. So that lead did dwindle a little bit. But there was never a point you were watching that game where you thought, oh, the Celtics might lose. Even despite that and the fact it was not competitive down the stretch in terms of a realistic chance for the Hawks, we still got 40 minutes out of Jason Tatum. So Tatum's going to be my guy. He was a better fantasy producer this year than Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard. Value, I mentioned it before. I'm going to go with Eric Gordon as my favorite value at the small forward position. Is there anybody else that you prefer for value?
Not really. Let me hang on. Oh, I'm never mind. Hang on 1 second. So I'm fairly interested in Isaac Okoro as a value option, just because. So we're projecting him, I think correctly. We're projecting him for what 24, just under 25 minutes. Which he came in, he played the last game he started. He only played 23 minutes, but I think that there is volatility in the minutes. So I think that a projection of just under 25 is the correct projection. But I do think that there is a lot of volatility. There's upside on those minutes for Isaac Okoro as a starter. So I kind of like him at 8% projected ownership as somebody who I wouldn't be shocked to see Isaac Okoro come out and actually play like closer to 30 minutes here. It's probably not the likeliest outcome. I think that the likeliest outcome is right around where we have him, 24.7. But I could see some minutes upside on Isaac Okoro, and we've got him at just 8% ownership. Clearly not a great fantasy producer, so it's not like somebody that I love, but I'm going to be above that 8% for sure.
And then if we move over to the power forward position now, it's a lot of the same guys, right? So we've got Tatum, Durant, Kawhi Leonard. It's going to be Tatum as the best pay up option. But in terms of value, here's where things look a little bit different, because we don't have the same guys necessarily always talk about here at the power forward as relative to the small forward pay up guys. Those are the same. The value option's not the same. So I view a few viable options here. We're looking at Al Horford. We're looking at DeAndre Hunter. We're looking at John Collins. We're looking at Torrey Craig. Of those players, or maybe somebody else, who do you consider the best power forward value?
Man, it's really tough at power forward. It's I guess DeAndre Hunter at 4,500. If we're calling 4,500 value, I would probably go DeAndre Hunter. If we want to go even lower, I have some interest in like Nick Batum. I think is interesting at 3,900, 5.5% ownership. I think that with the start, it wouldn't be that surprising to see him get into upper 20s of minutes. He played 30 minutes in a recent game. So I think Batum has some minutes upside if he's playing well. So if we want to go super value, I'd go down to Batum, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually going to answer Al Horford here. So if people say he's too expensive, my answer is going to be DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, I wasn't listening apparently, because I would have said Horford too if I was going up to 5,500.
38 minutes for Al Horford in game one. That's a ton of playing time for a guy who, while he is on the older end and is not quite as good of a fantasy producer as he is when he was an all-star, he's still somebody who, if we look at Al Horford, pull up his numbers for the course of the season, he was still a good fantasy producer, right? This is not a guy who I would look at as being somebody who can't produce an upside in 38 minutes. Yeah, for the regular season, 30 minutes per game, 26 fantasy points. If now he's going to be playing close to 40 minutes, it's a lot of upside for Al Horford, and he's still not priced appropriately for it. So I'm going to go with him.
Greg, before the show can go on, Brandon Katz says that I should be fired for suggesting that that Okoro could play 30 minutes tonight. So can you make the call? Am I fired? Should I leave the show, Greg? He did play 30 minutes 3 games ago, for the record.
You were fired after the show, not before the show.
Oh, I can. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this extra 20 minutes here with you.
Yeah. So, and by the way, we will 23 minutes to be exact.
All right. I can stick it out for 23 more minutes.
The reason being is we're going to pay Neil for these 23 minutes anyway. So I might as well get the work out of it.
Yeah.
I need somebody to fill some of the air while I drink Eric's tea.
That is a good point. Yeah. So Isaac Okoro played 30 minutes 3 games ago, 36 minutes earlier in March, clearly has 30+ minute upside, regardless of whether you think he's good. Brandon Katz doesn't like it because he doesn't do anything offensively. So he can't play 30 minutes. It doesn't matter if we think he's good. It matters what the coaches are going to do with him.
And let's see, I currently have 5% exposure to Isaac Okoro. He's in my player pool at the very least. I wouldn't call him one of my favorite value plays in the world, but I didn't fade him outright. Don't have a lot of exposure to him either. Let's talk about center, where we don't really have pay up options at center. The most expensive center is Julius Randle at 8,600. And then the drop down from that, you got Evan Mobley at 71. So it's funny, center's usually such a loaded position. You've got all these questions about opportunity cost, and that you usually got all-stars at center, and it's who do you want to play? We don't have any of that today. You got Julius Randle, you got Evan Mobley, and then there's a pretty big drop off. By default, the player who is I consider should be projected the best is Julius Randle, but it's because he's 1,500 more expensive than anybody else at center. Yeah,
Julius Randle, clearly, like if we're just going for who is the likeliest to put up the most fantasy points, it is Julius Randle at 8,600. We also have some of the best plays on the slate in the 6,000 range at center. So still not like somebody I'm going to be playing a ton of, because I'm more often going to be going to that mid range.
And then if we talk about the center position, I don't want to give Al Horford as my favorite center value. Already talked about him there. I'm actually going to go with DeAndre Ayton as my favorite center value. Another guy who I think could play pretty big minutes today. Maybe something that I shouldn't feel as confident projecting, because as much as we saw a lot of big minutes from a lot of different players in game ones, Ayton did only play 33 minutes in game one. But even 33 minutes of Ayton, I think, is well more than enough to pay off a 6,200 price tag. And I do think there is upside for him to play minutes beyond that. So I like Ayton a lot at center. He's somebody who I actually have the most exposure to at the position right now. So I'm going to give Ayton as my favorite center value. And Horford's also an acceptable answer there, but I already talked about him in power forward, so didn't want to bring him up here. Do you like Ayton, or is there somebody else or a cheaper center you might want to bring into the mix here?
Yeah, so I like Ayton quite a bit. I like Jarrett Allen quite a bit. I have a lot of interest in Al Horford. One more name I want to throw out there is, what about, so we saw Al Horford play 38 minutes last time out, but we know he's an old guy who's coming off a game in which he played 38 minutes. Do you think it's possible that Robert Williams gets more center minutes without Al Horford on the court tonight?
No, he kind of did it in the playoffs last year also. They were, I'll bring it up so I'm not just talking out of my ass. But Horford played pretty big minutes in the playoffs last year. I'll get it in front of me so I have the exact number. But Horford was banged up a lot of last year, and the Celtics were resting him in back-to-backs. They were cautious with him. They got to the playoffs, and they just let him rip. So I kind of think it's going to be the same. Here's what I think there's opportunity for. I think there's opportunity for Horford and Williams to play power forward and center minutes together, though.
Me too. Yeah. I believe they did in the last game. I should double check that that's the case, but I'm pretty sure they played.
Al Horford played 38 minutes. So.
Oh, that's right. Good point.
Unless
they did,
unless Robert Williams went out and played 10 minutes, which he didn't. They were sharing the court together. All right. Yep. I've got the box scores up from last year. It's on ESPN though, which has just the worst website of all time. So here we go. If we look at the playoffs last year, Al Horford in the first round against the Nets, he only played 32 minutes per game, but a handful of those games were, you know what it actually was? So he only played 32 minutes per game in the first series, but he fouled out in one of those games, and he had 3 or more personal fouls in every other game, and was also foul trouble in the final game of the series. Second series against the Milwaukee Bucks, 39 minutes per game for Al Horford. Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat, 37.5 minutes per game for Al Horford. Then in the NBA Finals against the Warriors, he only played 32 minutes per game, but in the closeout game, he did play 39 minutes. And also, if you remember the finals last year, there was a lot of lopsided games, which impacted some of the minutes. But yeah, by and large part in the playoffs last year, we were getting upper 30 minutes for Al Horford. So I kind of think that it's reasonable to expect more of the same unless there's a blowout today.
Okay. Well, I mean, I still like Robert Williams, even if we think that Al Horford is going to continue playing the same minutes. I still think, at 11% owned at 4,900, I'm going to be above the field for sure on Robert Williams against the Hawks, just, on the various ways that he can pick up extra minutes. And even if he doesn't, we know that he's such a great fantasy producer. So I would throw Robert Williams in there. I saw somebody in chat was just asking me about John Collins, and I agree. John Collins is interesting. We could see Jalen Johnson's minutes reduced or just disappear completely. John Collins played 29 minutes the last time out. So I think, I feel pretty good about John Collins here. We're not projecting him to play 26 minutes here, but I think that the upside is certainly there if he is playing well. So definitely a reasonable play, but the field is going to be there at 27%. So it's not like it's a sneaky play or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit underweight to the field on John Collins, and I am about double the field on Robert Williams. So talking about those guys that we just hit on there. So anyway, James, very good super chat. I think that was a really good summary for a lot of people who are watching. So hopefully that helps you guys build out your lineups. Some more super chats. This one is coming from Jay. Jay wants to know thoughts on Batum, Osman, and Johnson as value plays. I don't really think I have much exposure to any of those guys. Batum, I have 1% of. Chetty, I have 2% of. And Jalen Johnson is not in my player pool. So it's hard for me to advocate for any of them.
I have the most interest in Batum just because he is a starter, and I think he is the most likely, I think, to pick up extended minutes if he is playing well, and if it's a competitive game. So I think but Batum I do have interest in. I don't think I'm getting to Jalen Johnson, maybe a little bit of Chetty, but he's 6% owned. Like, you can definitely make a case for Chetty, but I don't think I could also see the Cavs absolutely rolling the Knicks here. Probably not going to happen, but I could see it in this game in particular. But Batum number 1 for me there, probably followed by Chetty, and then I don't think I'll play Jalen Johnson.
I mean, technically I have the most interest in Batum because I have 2% of him, but I mean, still, it's a thin option there.
Yeah.
Now we've got the next super chat here from Daniel Buffington. DK question, CP3 and Horford or Booker and Okongwu? That is CP3 and Horford for me.
Yeah, I believe it is for me too. CP3 also 7,200 with the potential of his backup point guard being out in this game. Yeah, it's definitely CP3 and Horford for me.
Yeah, and then also when you look at some of the other options, like I don't have very much interest in Okongwu, particularly because Okongwu is popular, right? If Okongwu is, we've talked about some of these other bench guys who are like 2-3% owned. Okongwu is projected for nearly 20% ownership. That kind of changes the equation. If he was lower owned, I can make a case for him. At his current ownership, I have 5% of him when he's, nearly 20%. So not as much interest in him. Already talked about how much I like Al Horford. So that's the way I'm going to be going with that. Rajal Patel, Neil, thank you for your service. You're fired. Here's beer money for tonight. LOL. Love you guys. Thanks for everything. So there you go. You've
Thank
already, yeah, I know that things are tough because you've just been fired by Brandon.
That is really tough. Yeah.
But it's okay because you got the super chat here. So we'll consider this your severance package.
You're contractually obligated to send me that money. He said it's for my beer. That's my parting gift.
Yeah. No, we're not.
Oh shit.
Not at all.
I'm not even getting this parting gift.
No. I'll Venmo you $5. How about that?
Perfect.
Yeah, that'll work. You go to a Timberwolves game, we'll get you like a third of a beer. Ace of Spade, DK Tiers. Thanks again, Greg. Yeah, we go back. I'll pull up my DK Tiers lineups and I will read them off for you guys. Again, I know we did it earlier, but people love tiers. What's wrong with reading it off twice? Tier 1, Jason Tatum. Tier 2, Jaylen Brown. Tier 3, Devin Booker. Tier 4, Chris Paul. Tier 5, Derek White. Tier 6, Robert Williams. So hopefully, if you guys missed it earlier when we talked about tiers, we got that information out for you guys again. James Magruder, the best 5,800 or under player for DK utility. 5,800 or under for utility. Let's see, who is that for me? 5,800. So the answer is Derek White. I assume there's a good chance he already has Derek White. I'm going to give you a few options because I'm going to give you ones to start that I think you probably already have. Derek White, really popular. Good chance you already have him. Al Horford, also really popular. Good chance you already have him. So Derek White, if you have Derek White, play Al Horford. If you have Al Horford, I actually have Clint Capella next. So I'm going to ask you the same thing, Neil. 5,800 or under, who would you go with? And if it's somebody super popular, just say who comes up next and maybe land on the same guy as me and Clint Capella.
You say 5,800? Okay, so yes. The top in our projections is actually Al Horford, followed by Clint Capella and then Derek White.
All right, so there we go. So it seems like ultimately Capella's probably the guy we're going to end up recommending there just because it stands to reason that Al Horford and Derek White will probably already be in the lineup that you have there. And as far as super chats go, we are caught up. So I'm going to go into our Discord channel to make sure we're caught up on all of those. And if you guys want access to all the tools like our player projections or ownership projections, the lineup generator over at Stokastic.com, you can sign up for any package for the first time and get 50% off using the link that we have below. And by the way, if you want to sign up for the lineup generator, which is going to be very, very valuable for the playoffs, we don't have to worry about late swaps as much. We don't have to worry about players, resting, all of that nonsense. The lineup generator is going to create plus EV lineups for you. It's a super useful tool. And maybe some of these 2 game slates, we're going to try to feature it a little bit more on these shows. We'll build some lineups in the lineup generator for you guys. You get access to that less than $5 if you sign up for the first time using the link that we have below. Now getting into the Discord channel, the Black Mamba 81. How many players is too many from one team on this slate? Let's see.
I think I set my cap at 4, so I would say 5 is too many.
I have some lineups with 5 today. Not many, but I do have some. I have, let's see. So of the lineups I built, I have, how many of these are... Yeah, I have a couple of lineups that are 5. Not very many, but I do have some I do have some lineups that have 5 Boston players, but not anything like crazy. In general, if you're only playing a few lineups, I would say 4 for today. I think 4 would be the max, particularly if you're hand building one lineup. I'd be okay with 4, but wouldn't go beyond that for today.
Yep, agreed.
Thank you for the question, Black Mamba. Next one here. Miami High Life, is it a bad idea to play Garland and Mitchell in the same lineup on DK? I don't have an issue with it. I have currently Yeah, I have some lineups that have Mitchell and Garland, not a lot, but still, it's only a 3-game slate. If the game's competitive, I don't see a reason to think that Garland and Mitchell couldn't pay off their price tags, particularly when you consider game one, Garland played 43 minutes, Mitchell played 44. Now, I know there's some negative correlation between them, but when you consider their price tags, if they're both going to play north of 40 minutes, they're live to both have good games relative to their salary. Mitchell was the much better fantasy producer in game one, to be sure, but I think both warrant exposure today. Are you doing anything to avoid these guys in the same lineup?
I'm not. I just looked and I have Mitchell in 16. I think I played 90 lineups. Mitchell in 16, Garland in 13, and I don't have overlap in any of them, which kind of surprised me. But I didn't set any kind of rule. I think that they're totally fine to play together. And I just want to Marquee Music Group asked, Neil, did you say you had LeVert in 60% of your lineups earlier? I did say that. That was before I adjusted anything, though. So I'm not going to have LeVert in 60%.
LeVert's one of my most rostered. I don't have anywhere near 60% of him, but he's one of my more rostered players today. Relative to the Fields exposure, he's one of the guys I'm more overweight to. Another thing, too, is, I mean, you look at teams, they could be really reactionary in game twos relative to game ones, especially when they lose. And you just look at the Cleveland team and think, what is one of the more reasonable ways they could adjust their rotation? I thought LeVert might start today. Not the case. They're starting Isaac Okoro, but wouldn't be stunning to me if we actually do see a little bit of a reduction of Okoro's minutes and give more to LeVert, particularly if the Cavs struggle early. It's just an easy change to make with the rotation there. Super chat, a follow-up from Burjal Patel. He's saying, please send this to Brandon so we could purchase the lineup generator. I'm also not going to send money. If I'm not sending money to Neil, I'm definitely not sending the money to Brandon either.
I don't think that he would use it, to be honest. I think it would be a waste of money to send it to Brandon Katz.
What do you think he would do? Eat it? I mean, what do you think he's doing with the money?
Probably, I don't know, grind it up and huff it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you give him the $5 and you say, here's for lunch, and he goes, thanks, and he just puts it in his mouth.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. No. This money, I'm not sending the money to anybody here. Keeping it for myself. I'm not sending it to Neil
straight
either.
to Greg. Straight to Greg's bank account.
Package for Neil. For anybody who's wondering, we actually split it amongst all the people who are on the shows equally, depending how many shows they're on, in case people were wondering what ends up happening there. All right, so we're all caught up on those questions. How are you doing on your lineups, by the way, Neil?
Yeah, I've submitted some lineups. I'm still adjusting. I think I'm going to get a little more Trae Young in my life. But yeah, I'm good. I'll be fine with my lineups as is.
Let's look at some of the ownership projections now. And I just want to read off for you guys where we are standing on projected ownership heading into lock. It'll do it for DraftKings and FanDuel. And here are the top 5 projected players on DraftKings, and I'll do it for FanDuel afterwards. Not that much chalk either for a 3-game slate. Derek White, the most popular projected player, 42%. Jason Tatum behind him at 39%. Jared Allen, 33.5%. Al Horford, 32%. Jaylen Brown at 31%. A lot of Boston players. Of the 5 most popular players on DraftKings, 4 of them are coming from the Boston Celtics. Moving over to FanDuel. Our ownership for FanDuel. Number 1, Darius Garland projected for 47% ownership. Jared Allen, 45%. Evan Mobley, 42.5%. Al Horford, 39%. Jason Tatum, 34%. Something that's funny is if you keep going down the ownership projections for FanDuel, but Derek White is still popular on FanDuel, not quite as popular on DraftKings. He's 6,600. The most popular players, you have to go all the way down to Torrey Craig to find a guy who's not from the Cavs or the Celtics that's projected for a lot of ownership, because it goes Garland, Allen, Mobley, Horford, Tatum, Brown, Brogdon, then Torrey Craig. So a lot of Boston, a lot of Cleveland showing up in lineups, at least as far as the way that the people are building them. I don't really have an issue with that.
Yeah,
but
seems about right.
One thing I do want to ask you, as we are only a few minutes left in the show, Neil, who is the player right now, as we're talking about the ownership projections, that you view as being the most overowned on the slate, or anybody who's, super negatively leveraged in the boom bust tool that maybe you're underweight to, I should say.
All right, I will answer in 1 second, submitting a new batch of lineups. And let me look at who I have the least compared to the field intentionally. All right, so sorting by ownership. Man,
it's tricky.
It is tricky. Maybe Zubats, just because there are so many other great center options at 29%. Like I saw the number on Zubats. I was like, oh, I thought he'll probably be overlooked. And I actually gave him a boost, but I'm like, at 29%, I feel like that is a bit overowned. So I would probably say Zubats, not super confidently, just because he's only 5,000 and Zubats clearly could completely go off. But he has a high range of outcomes, I would say, and 29%, a little bit high for me on Zubats.
He was a monster in game one. I project him well tonight, and I'm underweight to the field to him. Not because I think that Zubats should be projected poorly, but there's so many center options. So I have more of Robert Williams. I have more of John Collins, who is center eligibility. I have more of Jared Allen. I have more of DeAndre Ayton. You get to a point where especially you can only get to so many centers, and there's just other guys I prioritize more than Zubats relative to some of the ownerships here. So Zubats, if anybody's playing him, I don't have an issue with it. I have Zubats in my lineups as well. I just don't have as much as the field does at the 30%. So I think that is a pretty reasonable stance by you. And then looking at some of the FanDuel ownership, I think Jared Allen is a little bit too popular, projected for 45% on FanDuel. I know he's 7,200. There's upside in that price tag. He does have the power forward eligibility on FanDuel that he doesn't have on DraftKings. But when I was running lineups, I just wasn't getting 45% of Jared Allen. I was getting to him more in the 30% range. So it's funny. You get to these slates, it's like, oh, I have a guy in 33% of my lineups, and that makes him overowned for the 3-game slate. But just kind of the way things break down on some of these. All right, double checking Discord to make sure I didn't miss any of your guys' questions. If you have any last second questions, throw them in. Got one from Analyze, Risk Trade, Garland, Brunson, or Westbrook. Garland, Brunson, or Westbrook.
I think Garland projects the best point per dollar. So I'll start there. I think Brunson is interesting as kind of a low owned option. We have Garland at, we have Brunson at, 1 second, 13% ownership. So, that's he has Garland at 29%, Brunson at 13, and Brunson 7,900 is a pretty fair price tag to pay there. So I do have interest there, but yeah, it would still be Garland is like the best point per dollar option there. Probably the one I'm going to have the most exposure to.
I have the most exposure to Garland. I'm more overweight to Westbrook though, because I have a good amount of Garland, but I'm fairly close to the field. Whereas Westbrook, Westbrook is not all that popular. We've got Westbrook currently projected for, Westbrook. Yeah, Westbrook only projected for 19% ownership. I have him in 25% of my lineups. So if you're looking for a lower owned play, I would go with Westbrook. But if it's just who projects the best, the answer there is Darius Garland. As for other questions, we got one from Heflove. He wants to know, how am I feeling about Scott Foster reffing CP3? Well, I know that if the Suns lose today, people are going to be pointing at Scott Foster.
Undefeated.
So there's a lot that bothers me about this narrative. First of all, is that people conveniently don't talk about the regular season games because they don't fit into the narrative. Like if CP3 wins a regular season game with Scott Foster,
I didn't realize it was a playoff thing. I thought it was like his last 14 all games.
Yeah, it's either 13 or 14 playoff games in a row. Yeah, he's won regular season games with Scott Foster. They don't count for the stat because it doesn't fit into the narrative.
Right.
So there's something here. Here's what I think. I think it's pretty realistic to think Scott Foster might have some sort of bias against Chris Paul.
Yep.
I don't think that this is a sort of situation where it's like we have to assume the Suns lose or it's some sort of crazy scenario that goes against them. If you ask me who I think is going to win the game today, I'm going to answer the Suns regardless of who the ref is. And I also think 13 games, it's a relatively small sample size. Weird things happen in 13 games. Chris Paul's also had, if you look at Chris Paul's playoff history, it's been super bizarre. It's been plagued by injuries, not just himself, but his teammates have constantly gotten hurt. There's been all kinds of weird, fluky circumstances with Chris Paul's playoff run. So I think that Scott Foster might have a slight bias against Chris Paul. I don't think it's the only reason that the Chris Paul teams have lost games that he's ref, though.
Yeah, certainly not the only reason, but it wouldn't. I mean, I think it's probably a factor. I don't mind that people are factoring it in. But it is, it's hard to figure out exactly what to do with that information. Like I'm with you. I don't think that I'm suddenly going to bet the Clippers because of this, because we know that Scott Foster might be biased against Chris Paul.
Yeah, and somebody in chat is saying, oh, the Suns are -8. What a stand by Greg. Somebody asked me a question. I'm answering. People ask me if I'm concerned about it. Not really. It's really hard to wait for. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to build my DFS lineups and just take Chris Paul out of my player pool on a 3-game slate because of who the referee is. I
feel bad for Chris Paul. Chris Paul, I think, is one of the more underrated basketball players of the past decade or so. Like, people don't give Chris Paul enough credit for going from team to team and making bad teams really good really quickly. Like, I think he's a super underrated basketball player. I think it's unfortunate that he hasn't had success in the playoffs.
Super chat from Brajal, one final one. He's just saying my last super chat because I'm broke now. LOL. Good luck, everyone. So you look at this. So you look at these are the consequences of Neil getting fired by Brandon over the course of the show. Neil no longer has a job, and Brajal, trying to support Neil, has spent all of his money sending super chats to Neil that I'm not going to give him any of the money for. So we've really worked ourselves into a scenario.
We need to make
here.
better decisions, Brajal.
Yeah. By the way, we appreciate the support. We appreciate everybody who watched the show as well. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Bet365 for sponsoring the show. Click on the link below if you guys haven't signed up yet. It's the easiest way to get $200 in bonus bets. You're not going to be able to build your bankroll in an easier way today. But other than that, guys, enjoy all the games. Good luck tonight, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.